And Menelaus of the fair hair answered her, saying, Now I too, lady, mark the likeness, even as thou tracest it. For such as these were his feet, such his hands, and the glances of his eyes, and his head, and his hair withal. Yea, and even now I was speaking of Odysseus, as I remembered him, of all his woeful travail for my sake. When, lo, he let fall a bitter tear beneath his brows, and held his purple cloak up before his eyes. And Peisistratus, son of Nestor, answered him, saying, Menelaus, son of Atreus, fosterling of Zeus, leader of the host, assuredly this is the son of that very man, even as thou sayest. But he is of a sober wit, and thinketh it shame in his heart, as on this his first coming, to make show of presumptuous words in the presence of thee, in whose voice we twain delight as in the voice of a god. Now Nestor of Gerenia, lord of chariots, sent me forth to be his guide on the way. For he desired to see thee, that thou mightest put into his heart some word or work. For a son hath many griefs in his halls when his father is away, if perchance he hath none to stand by him. Even so it is now with Telemachus. His father is away, nor hath the others in the township to defend him from distress. And Menelaus the fair hair answered him, and said, Lo now, it is good truth there has come into my house the son of a friend indeed, who for my sake endured many adventures, and I thought to welcome him on his coming more nobly than all other Argives, if but Olympian Zeus of the far-born voice had vouchsafed us a return over the sea in our swift ships, that such a thing should be. And in Argos I would have given him a city to dwell in, and established for him a house, and brought him forth from Ithaca with his substance and his son and all his people, making one city desolate of those that lie around, and are in mine own domain. Then ofttimes would we have held converse here, and naught would have parted us, the welcoming and the welcomed, ere black cloud of death overshadowed us. Howsoever, the god himself, methinks, must have been jealous hereof, who from that hapless man alone cut off his returning. Telemachus is identified openly here now. The secret is no more, even though he calls out the fact that he covered his face with his purple veil. A note on Homer real quick, and I'm just for rule of thumb for the moment, for a while at least, I'm going to call Homer by the singular name, even though there is debate as to whether or not Homer is a single person or a collection of entities over time. I know that Robert Graves has a book that I have not yet read, but I believe in it he makes a claim that one, if not the only voice of Homer, is actually a blind woman. I might be wrong on that, but the concept of the book really intrigued me, and I can't wait to read it. But just for our sakes, right now, I'm going to refer to Homer as a singular entity. But just I want to talk a little bit about what he's doing here and something he does often, which is that when a character is recognized by another for the first time, like Telemachus is entering here, he often deepens these scenes with retrospective speeches that maybe reinterpret some past events. So, for instance, by allowing Menelaus here to imagine an unrealized future, tying it specifically to his love and respect for Odysseus, Homer kind of expands the emotional space just beyond the immediate action, which is necessary because they're just sitting around a hall right now. There's a Hollywood axiom that's called the Pope in the Pool. If you have a exposition scene that you have to have talking in order to get new information out, at least make it an interesting situation, like putting the exposition in the words of the Pope and put the Pope in a pool to make it a little bit more exciting. Anyway, I think that's kind of what's going on here, is that Homer is expanding the emotional space in order to deepen the story, even though there's no real action happening. This is how pathos is created. This is how themes are repeated and established throughout stories. So I just find it interesting. This is a really clear-cut example of that. I also have here, and I've mentioned this already, this book, but I have the Penguin Classics Deluxe Edition of the Odyssey, translated by Robert Fagles, not to be confused with Robert Graves. And Bernard Knox gives an introduction to this, and I've earmarked a few things. Now, I mentioned this before. Do you like foley of books? Here, listen. This is proof that I have the book in my hand. This is a floppy copy too. Ooh, I love a floppy copy of a book. Here, one more time. Oh yeah. Okay. But I've earmarked some places I want to discuss, and I can't read them verbatim because the introduction is copyrighted, obviously. But I think I want to start bringing a few of these points out as we go along. So here's an interesting thing as I was talking about the books. These aren't chapters so much as, I mean, they're functionally like chapters, but they're called books. And I'm sure someone more knowledgeable about the publishing industry could educate me on the difference between books, the different functions between books and chapters and sections, etc. But essentially, at some point after the oral tradition, or even concurrently with the oral tradition, someone had put this story down on scrolls. Now, this would have been papyrus, and it says here in this introduction that the story's too long for a single roll of papyrus, obviously, but that it maybe amounted to about 24 different rolls of papyrus to transcribe the entire poem of the Odyssey, which is maybe why there are 24 books in this story. I will caveat that by saying there are so many different versions of the Odyssey, different translations, different, there's prose versions, there's poem versions. Some try to be authentic to the original Greek, some try to modernize it. That I don't know that there are 24 books in every version. Some, might even abridge it. I've seen a handful that condense the Iliad and the Odyssey into a single tome and just do excerpts from both. So I'm talking about the OG unabridged version of the Odyssey. There are usually 24 books within it, and we are currently in book 4. Anyway, I found that interesting. I have many more things bookmarked to talk about in the future. I'll bring them out as we go along. But join me here tomorrow as we find out a little bit more about Odysseus and the life that could have been had Menelaus been able to bring Odysseus forth from Ithaca. Until tomorrow, okay, goodbye. Odyssey is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. The show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Odyssey, written by Homer. Theme song by Neuroflow. You can support this show and other shows like it by going to patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.